Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, folks. How you doing? It's Danny Tisdale, and you're listening to the Danny Tisdale Show. And you know what? It's not really my show. I'm sharing this week of shows with the Harlem Writers Guild, and what we are doing is we're partnering, collaborating on the Harlem Writers Guild and the Harlem World Magazine at-home reading series. And this is, if my memory serves me correct, you know, I'm at that age. I got to look at my paperwork at number 3. And let me talk a little bit about the Harlem Writers Guild. It's one of the oldest organizations in organization of African American writers in the world, founded in 1950 by John Oliver Kellens, Rosa Guy, John Henrik Clark, Willard Moore, and Walter Christmas. Their URL, their web address is www.harlemwritersguild.org. A little bit before I introduce the gentlemen who are going to be part of this of today's show, is that we thought it would be a great idea, since you're at home and the libraries are closed, that we bring writers and authors and invite them to read for you. And to read for me, I love it. I'm an artist, so I love having fellow artists on the show and talking about their craft and instigating a little bit about, the process itself. And without further ado, I think Marc Polite is going first. How are you doing, Marc?
Hey, Danny. I'm doing pretty good. Holding up and all that, you know.
Well, excuse me. I want to say hello to both of you. I don't want to say hello to John, almost 20 minutes later. Hello, Marc and John Robinson, Marc Polite. How are you both doing?
I'm pretty good, Danny. Very good, and thank you for having me.
Thank you both for being here. And Marc, without further ado, you have the stage, and thank you, Marc, for being here.
Okay, and thank you again for the invite. I, really appreciate it, and it's, really good to speak to your audience about what inspires me and what motivates me. So,
right.
To give you an idea, I'm Marc, and I'm a writer, born and raised in Harlem. Been out for in the poetry scene for a little bit. In addition to that, I'm a blogger. I also am the editor-in-chief of PoliteOnSociety.com, and that is a website of literary reviews, book reviews, and social commentary, and that's what I do in addition to all of my poetry. So I'm a little bit of both. I'm a blogger, an author, and a poet. So that's kind of.
Marc, did you give your URL?
Yes. That's www.politeonsociety.com.
Gotcha. Fantastic.
So I've been that site has been up and functional since 2009, and actually next month will make 11 years, and that's
fantastic.
something that
Congratulations.
I've been. Thank you. That I'm very proud of, and proud of all of the the people who have looked to my site as a source and go to it and visit it, because we just need more. We need more Black and aware platforms in our community that are willing to point out social truths, and that's basically where I'm coming from. Like I speak from a place of truth, whether or not it runs the risk of offending people, and that's just kind of how I come at it. A bit about my work. I have 3 books. I have 2 poetry books, Poetic Ruminations Volume 1 and Volume 2, and they are books of poetry talking about rebuilding your self-esteem, recovering from setbacks, building, like coming into your sense of self. I grew up in Harlem, in the era that was kind of tough, and I've faced things that could have been the end of me. That could have been just been could have just made me fall by the wayside, but, through grace and, in support of people in the community, I was able to, really thrive. And so those are my two poetry books. And my third book is a collection of essays, Everything to Learn, Nothing to Teach. And it's basically a collection of commentary and my personal recollections. It kind of reads like a memoir of sorts, but just talking about my early years, growing up in Harlem, living on Amsterdam Avenue, and all that meant to be an adolescent in the 80s and a teenager in the 90s, things that people don't think about anymore, like just what it meant to have to, avoid drama and, stay out the streets and stay away from danger and all that, so
kind of navigating that course of life in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So, that's what my work's all about, and, practically I like to speak from a place of truth and a place of honesty. And there are some times where it kind of gets me in hot water, but that's just part of the game. Yeah, so yeah. If you, I'm thinking, if I have some time, I would like to read 2 poems for you this afternoon. I'd like to read one from Poetic Ruminations Volume 2, and this one is talking about the need to be brave, and it's called Practicing Bravery. Life demands much of us, more than we have at times. Growth emerges from struggle, and it can turn to strength if we give it more than one take. Even if you go from overlooked to under attack, practice bravery like you mean it. It all adds up eventually. Instead of getting dragged, get out front and pull. Don't be scared to say something you know folks ain't trying to hear. They may not be here for it, but it's what you're here to do, and that's what's more important. Admire the bravery of those before us, but recognize that these times require us to practice bravery of our own. That's one. So
that's a short one, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I want to respect everybody, respect the time constraints and all that. So
okay.
Okay, this one I want to read. I don't, even though I say that I am an advocate for truth, I don't want people to think that I'm one-dimensional and it's just all angry poems all the time. So, I'm gonna read something that's a little bit more on the sensitive side, and this one comes from my first poetry book, the Poetic Rumination of Mr. Bornay's Volume 1, and this one is called "It's Good to Be Needed." In a time where everyone needs no one, and they often scream it, it feels good to be needed. In a world where everyone is an island, disconnected and indifferent, it's good to be needed. When contact is instant, but involvement is surface, it's good to be needed. At a time where money matters more than people, and people matter not at all, it's good to be needed. When prestige is vanishing and all titles are stripped away, it's good to be needed. Because no matter what I have or don't have got or haven't got, will get or won't get, I know that I am needed by 2. How many in your life need you? So that's the second one. So thank you. So that's kind of the those are just two examples.
Some teasers, right.
Yeah, to kind of give you an idea of the flavor of my poetry and what I talk about and thematically, and all that. So
yeah, well, Marc, I wanted to ask you, there, like I've done with other writers throughout the week, is to ask them about a little about their process, because there may be someone at home, and me as an artist, I'm very interested in the process. Do you write from life, your life, or others' life, or do you kind of wake up in the morning and these things are in your head and you have to get them out? What's a little insight on your process? I'm curious.
Okay, Danny. So I'll definitely let you in on the process. Now the thing is, I write from my vantage point. I write from my life experiences based upon what I've gone through. I have to speak on what I know. Like, I know people have other experiences out here, but like, I know what my life has taught me. I know the life lessons that I've learned. I know what I've been through, and I know what I've survived. So, of course, we can always look in the book and read about somebody else's life. But if I'm going to be writing my own work, and it's not research based, and it's not like about facts and figures, and I'm going to be talking about from my experiences, from what I've lived. So, my process is to try to reconcile and deal with some of the things that, I've been confronted with. One piece that I have in my second book of poetry is I deal with the issue of colorism and how, I've confronted it because. Yep. I mean, I'm obviously I'm on a radio show, so y'all not going to see my picture right up there. But I'm a dark-skinned fellow. So, and then, growing up in Harlem in the '80s as a dark-skinned fellow wasn't all that great sometimes. And I remember the dark joke. I've heard practically every iteration of every dark joke that you could ever form. I've heard it all, like from like just. Like African booty scratchers,
school,
this,
friends,
that, and,
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just like from school, all this kind of stuff. So, like, the way I look, my approach is to drain the poison, to take away the bitter, it's like when a snake bites you, and unless if you don't deal with it, if you don't drain the poison, it's gonna get to your veins and kill you. And it's the same deal with with people that's trying to break your confidence and make you feel less than, because that'll stop you from moving forward. So my whole process.
So in some ways, it's kind of a cure for the attack of the nervous system. This is kind of a way of attacking it positively with regurgitating it in your own words in some ways. And that was that's kind of a thread, Marc, from some of the other writers that I spoke to, Gene, and I'm just trying to remember some of the names offhand. I think it was Minnie Coleman, but most of them were talking about, at least, talking about their own history as a starting point. It may not be the end point, but it certainly is part of the starting point. Marc, is that what you would suggest with someone out there who, young or old or in the middle, would want to write, that they kind of start with themselves, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, I would recommend, starting with your experiences, because, I mean, as far as like what we, have out here, like I trust my own experiences, because sometimes the whole world is out here telling us that we're wrong. They'll go bend over backwards and say, oh, no, there's no oppression out here. It's just fine. Black people are just complaining too much, and we just need to do better and forget about the systemic things that are confronting us. And don't complain about high rents. Don't complain about the thing about low wages, as if that's not going to be a material thing that's going to affect people, And part of it is to really get a hold of your own story. And if you're going to write from your own perspective, you have to get a hold of the story. And I kind of don't trust anybody with my story because people might get things wrong or say that, oh, this was what it was when it really wasn't, or have the year wrong, or say it's 97 when it happened in 98, or just little things like that with formative things that you can't trust people with. It's better to write your story yourself.
Yeah, no, and I think you're on point with that, and it almost goes without saying in a way that who writes your story better than yourself. And Marc, thank you a bunch. I just want to let our listeners know they're listening to the Danny Tisdale Show on Harlem World Radio, and this is part of a partnership with the Harlem Writers Guild and Harlem World Magazine at-home reading series. And punch that orange button at the bottom and support the work that we're both doing, both organizations. You can hook up with the Harlem Writers Guild at the harlemwritersguild.org. And next we turn the mic over to Mr. John Robinson. How you doing, John?
I'm fantastic, Denny. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man, and I can't wait to hear you read.
Thank you. First and foremost, Marc, I'm a fan of your work. Those were fantastic, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just always in awe when I hear you. But just to give you a small thing about myself,
please.
I live in the Bronx, New York. I actually have been fortunate to see the birth of hip-hop music, if you will, from its very early stages. And that was something that greatly influenced me, along with being introduced to the last poets and being introduced to jazz from my dad. And having that as a background and making them both merge, I found something where I can speak on for me. And I've been fortunate to be able to do this for as long as I have. And I'm blessed that people enjoy my material. I'm overjoyed that sometimes, and all poets, I'm sure Marc can contest this, there are times in which you will write something and you never know who's going to be inspired or who it's going to touch. I've done poetry in prisons and other places, and you're touching somebody, depending on the material. It's just a wonderful thing to be able to extend this gift and stretch your pen poetically. And pretty much what inspires me are the things that are around me. I wrote about this coronavirus, not as the coronavirus, just as certain things within it, but I write about the troubles of a single man in New York. I write about the troubles of an African-American man. I write about what my childhood was like in dealing with people, from the police to the hustlers to the drug dealers to, women and all that other things, because life in itself is a story. And as hard as it is to say, when we all ascend to heaven, there's a little dash that says he was born this date and he went home this date. In that dash is your story. What is your story going to say about you? What are people going to mostly remember about you that they can tell other people? So, and as Marc, I have 2 books. I'd like for that to carry on after I'm gone someday. And I write because sometimes we as writers say things that need to be said that other people won't say.
And I'm sorry to take some of your time, John, but can you mention your 2 books?
The first one is called Signifying Harlem, and the other one is coming through in a couple of weeks. It's called A Spoken Word Soliloquy.
Great.
And you can find me on Instagram, so I can get in touch with you with both of them at jrob_the word _wise son, one word, on Instagram.
Great.
So it's jrob the wise son on Instagram, and I can connect you to my books, and some of my other poetry is posted on there, from the mild to the erotic.
Thank you.
We have that. And I do have a blog on Republic Black, which is a clothing line that just came out from a young man sometime last year, and I tag a lot of different topics and what have you that affect the African American Latino community. And that's something that we do with republicblackapparel.com. So you'll see a blog there specifically for me. And I also have a radio show on Blog Talk Radio on Thursday nights. It's part of the For Real Entertainment Network called The Get Down, and it's a specific poetry show. So every Thursday at 9 o'clock, you'll hear what we do on The Get Down via Blog Talk Radio.
Love it.
As for the pieces, if you don't mind, I can just jump right into them.
It's yours.
Excellent.
Whenever you're ready to get down.
Let's do it. This first piece is entitled See It Through. So, let me see. What do you think of me? Brothers and sisters, I need you to take a look because what we're doing right now is currently making history. Who has been through all of this and finds the strength to rise when dove cries? Who has shoulders that everyone wants to lean on? Who has a kind word everyone wants to depend on? Who has been through so many backstabbing administrations that we still feel the knives that they slide into our backs that they used to? Yet with all the things that we really do, so we got to see it through. Black clouds always come around just to show you how to appreciate sunny days, and even when the sun shines, there is always some unforeseen haze, and all you have to do is shade your eyes and keep your eyes on the prize. And even if you hear all the pretty hellos and the well-deserved goodbyes, and even after the tears dry from your eyes, look, you've made it. You still got to see it through. Quitting is not an option reserved for those that can't look a challenge in the eye and say, I dare you. They backpedal on every level, but we are not made from that metal. So pick up a shovel and bury your fears in it. So even if there's no one that says that they believe in you like I do, know that running from your fears will not save you. That's why we must still see it through. And even if you hope, and even if hope seems like a faraway dream, it seems futile for a little while with all those things coming for you, and even though it seems harder than you've ever dreamed, remember that challenges are unforeseen circumstances that you just haven't conquered yet. Your ancestors just continue to whisper, keep going. If not for you, then for me. And remember, whatever you're facing, you're just not going through, because regardless what they say or what they do, you've got more fighting to do. You don't have time to give up. So stand strong on everything that you see and that you do. Push harder than you think you can. Brothers and sisters, we're going to make it past this. You have to believe that. We have to see it through. And peace. Nice. This second piece is called A Letter to God. She said she is scared and has lost faith in you and your capabilities. She said, how do you want me to pray to someone I can't see often or last long? I said, that's funny. You can't see this virus, but you still got your gloves and your mask on. She explained that she's scared to inhale in this hell because what's out there cannot be lasso tame or cattle prod. She remembers water, streams, babbling brooks, and clouds on the tops of evergreens and dawn's burning light. She misses blue skies and red sunsets, birds flying in flocks, children, chuckles, and schoolyard basketball, bank shots, skilly games, and scents of outside before and after it rains. She said she fears that we will never get this experience again, and she feels mute because she's quarantined. She is remembering sound. She prayed in languages she didn't know she could learn. She is scared to ask what to turn to next because it isn't on Netflix. Answers are not easy when she's a prisoner, not only in her mind but in her own home, arrested in a house for a crime she didn't commit. She misses the taste of coffee breaks and bad jokes and being hit upon by men she would never look twice at while sipping wine with her girlfriends at a Harlem hotspot, while hospital frozen bodies now resemble embryos for science projects. So now she knows where to find a rock in a hard place. It's on that intersection down the block between sick and tired of being sick and tired. And while her faith is shook, I said, He isn't a life giver who has given you bounds of unimaginable strength. I reminded her that she is the great-great-great-grandchild of people who have lived through the Middle Passage, survived slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, voters registration, voter suppression, Black Panther movements, and orchestrated death of leaders that look like us. And my only statement was, if we brought them through all that, he'll bring us through this. Because if you weren't prepared for bad days and rolling thunder like these that look like broken heart nights, then you won't appreciate how bright the sun shines when your blessings bless other people as you dance to your favorite song along the bright beam of light that only you can see and dance upon. Because another word for blessings that you have to remember is love. And like Grandma said, God is love. Hence your name, beloved. And peace.
Ah. Very nice, very nice. That was See It Through.
Yes.
Well, you know, John, we've. I'm sorry.
No, I did too. The first one was See It Through. The second one was A Letter to God.
Oh yeah, I got you. Okay. The last one was A Letter to God, and you know we've got a few minutes here, and I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, and not.
Please.
You know, same question I asked Marc. You know, someone's listening, and they have been inspired by what you've just read. What's a good starting point? Is it your passion? Is it what you know, which is paraphrasing, I guess, what I'm saying that Marc said? Is it different or similar for you in your process?
It's quite similar. It's quite similar, and it's a passion, and it is taking a look at your surroundings and say, what am I feeling right now? And then put pen to pad. And once you put pen to pad, then the spirit takes over.
I'm sorry. Is it always, John, the first thing that you write or the first thing you think of? Let me ask it differently. Is it the first thing you think of, or do you write and then go back to something that catches your eye after you've kind of written in your journal or your typewriter, however you write?
I'll write the whole thing out because I can hear the words in my head, and then I'll go back and
get them out.
Yeah, as long as I hear the words in my head, it tends to make sense, and then you can picture it. Then I'll get to writing, and right after I finish it, then I can go back and make corrections and what have you.
So would that be your advice for someone who wants to follow in your penmanship, is to write what you're passionate about, write what you know?
Oh, absolutely. Please, don't silence your pen. Please put pen to paper and write what's in your heart. And somebody out there is going to be touched because they're going through the same thing that you just scribed on paper. So definitely, put down your passion on paper.
Well, guys, as I mentioned to you, we're already at that last minute, and I knew it was going to fly by, especially when I've got another 20 questions and 10 for each of you. Thank you so much for being on the show and to be a part of this Harlem Writers Guild and Harlem World Magazine at-home reading series. And I've really enjoyed it, Marc and John, and don't be surprised if I circle back and we try to do another version of this at another time. Thank you again, gentlemen.
I would look forward to it. Thank you so much for having me, Danny.
Okay, thank you. And I'll be waiting that too. Okay, no problem.
All right, the best to both of you, and good luck to the Harlem Writers Guild, and please be safe. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks.
You too.
All right, take care.
Okay. And listeners, thank you for being on the show for us and with us, and being a part of this series with the Harlem Writers Guild and Harlem World Magazine at-home reading series. And don't forget to hit up the Writers Guild at theharlemwritersguild.org. Thank you again, and we'll be back for number 4 in this series soon. Bye-bye.